Okay, dokie, guys, we're gonna do 3.1 rational numbers and decimals. This is the standard, and our goal is that you will be able to convert a rational number to a decimal and get at least 4 out of right problems correct. We had 3 definitions to recall. So a rational number is a number that can be written as a ratio. Remember, ratio were compared to quantities of 2 integers, a and b, where b is not 0. Okay, so your denominator cannot be 0 because otherwise the number is undefined. Okay, so for instance, 3 I can rewrite as a over b. Why? Because I can do 3 divided by 1, and that just gets me 3. Any of these numbers are rational numbers because it's a over b, a over b, a over b, right? So we have different, we have integers divided by each other. Or for instance, 0.75, which we're going to work with today, 75 hundredths, I can also rewrite as a ratio, okay? Terminating decimals, that's so basically decimal numbers that come to an end. So for instance, 1.38, 0.75, negative 7.2. Okay, so all of those are terminating decimals at the end. Repeating decimal is where you have the decimal with one or more digit repeating indefinitely. That means forever and ever and ever. So for instance, if you do 1 divided by 3, you'll get 0.333, and it's never ending, right? But it does have a repeating pattern. So therefore, this is a rational number because it does have a repeating pattern. So I can write it like that. So then instead of writing all of this, I can just use my repeating bar, which is right here, and put on top of the number that repeats. Another example, the repeating decimal, if I have 0.656565, right? And I can see that it repeats again. So I'm going to draw my repeating bar. And the last example, so you just careful with any repeating decimals, is that, for instance, if only one digit repeats, then you only draw the bar of that repeating digit, okay? So for instance, we see that the 8 doesn't repeat, it's only the 3. So therefore, the 3 is going to have a repeating bar on top of it. So let's get to the writing of rational as decimals, and then also writing mixed numbers as decimals. Okay, so let's get to writing rational numbers as decimal. So we're going to take those rational numbers, which are basically numbers that can be written as a fraction of a over b. So there's only one step to do. This means 1 divided by 2. Okay, that's basically what it means. And we remember that the first one goes inside the house. I don't have to write this, but that's just to show you. So I'm going to say 1 divided by 2. Okay, now I know that 2 doesn't go into 1, so I'm going to add a decimal there, 0 times, bring up my decimal, add a 0. So now I have 10. How many times is 2 going to 10? 5 times, and then 5 times 2 is 10, so minus 10. Add a 0 there. So basically 1/2 equals 5/10. Okay? Now 3/4. First one in the house. So first one in the house, and then divided by 4. I'm going to use my Mexican way of dividing so I can save some space on my board and also time. So 4 doesn't go into 3, so that's 0 times. I'm going to decimal here, bring it up to my quotient, add a 0. How many times does 4 go into 30? 7 times. And 7 times 4 is 28, and I have 30, so I have 2 left over. Bring a 0 down. How many times does 4 go into 20? 5 times. Okay, so 4 times 5 is 20, so I have a remainder of 0. So 3/4 equals 0.75 or 75 hundredths. Okay, here we go. Let's do this one. First one goes in the house. So I'm going to say 3 divided by 8. Do not worry about the negative. We'll just add it at the very end to the answer. How many times does 8 go into 3? 0 times. So I'm going to add a 0 there, bring up the decimal, add a decimal there, bring it up. And then I'm going to add a 0. How many times does 8 go into 30? That's 3 times. And 3 times 4 is 28. So from 24 to... Oh, did I say 28? Ay, Nancita. Okay, so this one, same thing. First one in the house, I'm going to say 3 divided by 8. Okay, don't worry about the negative. We'll just add it to the end, to the answer. So how many times does 8 go into 3? 0 times. I'm going to add a decimal here, bring it up. And then I have a 30. How many times does 8 go into 30? 3 times. 3 times 4. 3 times 8 is 24. I'm going to do it my way, the Mexican way. So 24 to get to 30, I have 6 remaining. And I'm going to bring the 0 down. How many times does 8 go into 60? That will be 7, because 7 times 8 is 56. So it's 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. That's how Miss Lopez does it. And then bring down the 0 again. And then how many times does 8 go into 40? 5 times. And 5 times 8 is 40, so I have a remainder of 0. So then that equals 0.375, and it was a negative, so I'm going to keep it a negative. Because remember, in math, we don't change things, right? We just kind of manipulate them or manipulate them. So that's how we write ratios into decimals. Again, you guys, just remember, first one in the house. That's the only thing you have to remember, and then divide after that, right? You're going to do long division. If you forget that, you flip them, you of course will get it wrong. So make sure that you do first one in the house, 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 okay? So those numbers go inside the house. Now let's go to mixed numbers as decimals. There are two ways that you can do it. I'm going to show you just to review how to change that to an improper fraction. So the first method is that you change this into an improper fraction, which I think is a little extra because we're actually taking an extra step, but you can do it if you want to. So how do we change a mixed number into a improper fraction? I'm going to take my whole number, I'm going to multiply by my denominator because this tells me how many equal parts I'm cutting each whole into. So 6 times 4 is 24, and then I'm going to add my numerator. So 24 plus 3 is 27. And I always keep the same denominator. Let me just show you why. If I have 1.5, I'm basically saying I have a whole pizza and half more, right? Well, I want to see how many halves I have. That means that I have to cut this one in half. That's what we multiply right here, because 1/2 is going to have, one pizza, one whole pizza is going to have 2 halves, right? So then I have 1, 2, 3, and they are halves. So that's how I end up with 3 halves. Now, I don't have to draw all of this because I know that there's a pattern that I'm going to take my whole, I'm going to multiply that by the equal parts I'm cutting it into, right? So by my denominator. So 1 times 2 gives me 2, and I add the extra slide that I have right here, right? So 1 times 2 is 2 plus 1 is 3, and then I just keep the same denominator, okay? So now from here to changing it to a decimal, I'm going to do the same thing. First one in the house, I'm going to say 27 divided by 4. How many times does 4 go into 27? 6 times, because 6 times 4 is 24. So let me do it your way so you don't get confused. And then that's 3. Decimal, bring up the decimal, add a 0, bring down the decimal. How many times does 4 go into 30? That will be 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. So I have a 2 remaining. And then another 0 here, and then that will be 5. Okay? So I know that 6 3/4 is 6.75. Now let me show you the other way that you can do it. The other way that you can do it is you're going to just take your whole number, right? So I'm going to just write 6. And then I'm just going to work with this right here, which is a fraction, okay? And if I go back over here, that's already done. So it's 3/4. So I'm just going to add the decimal there and add the decimal number, which is the same thing, okay? So let's do the second method with this one right here. I'm going to keep the same 2. So I'm just going to keep the whole number. I'm going to leave it alone, and I'm going to work with the 2 fifths, okay? So remember, first one in the house. So 2 divided by 5. I'm going to do it my way to save space and time. How many times does 5 go into 2? 0 times, right? Decimal here, decimal there, 0. How many times does 5 go into 20? 4 times. 4 times 20 is 20. So I have a remainder of 0. So then I'm going to add my decimal here and add a 4 right there. So 2 and 2/5 equals, or negative 2 and 2/5 equals negative 2 and 4/10, okay? So that's how we do that. So let me give you homework to practice. So I'm going to have you guys do two problems. The first one, you're going to get me 1/8 into a decimal form. And then we're going to have you do 5 3/6 into a decimal form as well. Okay, so decimal, convert into decimal. Remember, you can do this. You're awesome. Math is magical. And God bless you.